Okay, we're starting. Good afternoon. On behalf of Tzu Chi Foundation and the Earth Savers UNESCO Artists for Peace, which had here a exhibition booth at COP21, we would like to share with you, together with our partners, what has been a very fruitful exchange or declarations of interfaith dialogue, as well as what's most important, perspective of the value of spiritual and cultural resources as a womb of support to confront climate change. So we shall begin with the Buddhist declaration of support. The religions or different faiths have all converged to push for that much needed global deal to save Mother Earth and life on this planet, our common home. So we have here Shara Shannon, who is the director of our Voices in Asia, to provide you the essence of the Buddhist declaration, and you will see that this declaration was already given to President Hollande. Shara?
Thank you, Cecile. If I can just start by introducing our Voices. So we are an interfaith organization, and this year we've been involved with the Buddhist Statement for Climate Change, which was signed by 26 of the top Buddhist leaders, from Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, Karmapa, along with some of the supreme heads from Asia to start off with. And we very much focused on Asia because of the risks of climate change in Asia. And what we're hoping is that this message, this declaration, will then trickle down, because we do find that in many countries in Asia, except for perhaps the Philippines, where obviously the Catholic Church is very strong and the words of the encyclical is filtering down, that at a community grassroots level, the awareness of climate change is quite weak. So we are hoping that the Buddhist statement, particularly in countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, etc., will trickle down. So the Buddhist statement, it really focuses on Buddha's concept of dependent co-arising. So he was talking about that 2,600 years ago, and it's all about the interdependence and how we're all connected. And many of you who have also read the encyclical, Chapter 4, Integral Ecology, does talk about the interconnectedness to each other and also to nature. Our Voices has also been involved in the Hindu declaration that also brings in this concept of interconnectedness, as well as involved in the Muslim statement. And what's very, very important, as Cecile mentioned, is that many of these statements are saying very similar things. The Buddhist statement was the first statement signed by such high-level Buddhist leaders and sent directly to world leaders. Before 2009, the Dalai Lama, he had his own statement. In fact, he has many of his own statements. But what you don't find too often is that these high-level Buddhists come together. They do tend to do things, more individually or bilaterally. So it asked for 1.5 degrees. And differently, it also talked about climate finance. So it's not necessarily a Buddhist thing to talk about money, but it did push for more than the 100 billion proposed. It also spoke about the fact that we need to reduce consumption. And again, you see that in the encyclical, that we need to change our lifestyles. We need to really move beyond our sort of consumption-led lifestyles. So it's a very interesting statement. And as Cecile said, it was presented yesterday to President Hollande. And you can find it, if it's okay to give you the website, gbccc.org. Thank you, Cecile.
Thank you, Shara. As Shara had mentioned, what's wonderful about this is all faiths are converging, and a good spine has been the Laudato Si encyclical of Pope Francis, which really opens up an embrace of all religions for caring for creation, for compassion for the poor, especially the vulnerable groups. And so, especially as Shara mentioned, with the visit of the Pope in the Philippines, there's been a very strong Catholic, not just Catholic, interfaith movement. As a matter of fact, the Earth Savers has been involved with this more than 4 years ago. Its founder, who's a climate change commissioner, together with the Archbishop in the Philippines, Archbishop Ledesma, and the ecumenical group of churches with different leaders, Buddhist, Muslim, have all joined together to express this strong appeal to stop violence against mankind and Mother Earth. So now we have from the Muslim Declaration. This will be given by the chairman of the Pakistan Interfaith Climate Change Movement, Harun Akram Hill.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecil. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Being Muslim, we believe in what our God, we say Allah, tells us through the Holy Quran. And the Quran says, corruption has appeared on land and the sea because of what people's own hands have wrought, so that we may taste something of what we have done, so that hopefully they will turn back. Keeping the above in mind, we, the Muslim, call upon the Conference of the Party, COP, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the meeting of the parties to the Kyoto Protocol taking place in Paris, to bring their discussion to an equitable and binding conclusion, bearing in mind, and I hope that they have done that, the scientific consensus on climate change, which is to stabilize greenhouse gas emissions concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system, whether it is 2 degrees or 1.5 degrees. We particularly call on the well-off nations and oil-producing states to lead the way in phasing out their greenhouse gas emissions as early as possible and no later than the middle of the century, and recognizing the moral obligation to reduce consumption to the poor, so that the poor may benefit from what is left to the earth's non-renewable resources. We also call on the people of all nations and their leaders to aim to phase out greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible in order to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere. We recognize that we are but a minuscule part of the divine order. Yet, within that order, we are exceptionally powerful well-beings and have the responsibility to establish good and avert evil in every way we can. We call on all groups to join us in collaboration, cooperation, and friendly competition in this endeavor, and we welcome the significant contributions taken by other faiths, as we can all be the winners of this race. Thank you.
Thank you, Harun. And now we would like to explain why, besides the spine of religious synergy for the call to action here in Paris, we are likewise presenting an understanding of the value of culture as a strong womb of support to communicate, to inform, to educate, and motivate people to be involved in this battle against climate change catastrophes. And before we proceed, we would like to share with you a special song from Peter Yarrow of the famous Peter, Paul, and Mary folk trio. His song and the relevant message for us here in COP21. Peter Yarrow and his song, Blowing in the Wind, and how he relates the importance of generosity for solving the crisis of climate change. Peter Yarrow. Well, I think it's gonna come. He's on video with his message. Meanwhile, you see that there are paintings that reflect this. Peter will come up with a song. And let's now try and, while they're fixing the video, to present Anika Molesworth, because she's from the International National Trust Organization, which had done a Victoria Declaration for Cultural Sustainability against climate change. And this is very much in link with the UNESCO under the leadership of Director General Irina Bokova, who has in fact pushed for the recognition of culture as an essential ingredient in promoting sustainable development. Anika?
Thank you very much. So the International National Trust Organization, or INTU as it is known, is an umbrella organization for about 65 member organizations involved in conserving natural, built and cultural heritage. And it promotes the conservation and enhancement of both the tangible and intangible, and advocates for and promotes conservation best practices. INTU has been represented at 3 COPs, promoting the need for more attention to be paid on the effect of climate change on cultures and cultural heritage. In 2011, our biannual International Conference of National Trusts was held in Victoria in British Columbia, at which the Victorian Declaration unanimously agreed on the implications of cultural sustainability amidst climate change. The Victorian Declaration, on behalf of citizens of the world, urges the global community, in particular its leaders, to take strong and decisive action to address climate change and its impacts on heritage through both mitigation strategies that reduce climate change and adaptation strategies that cope with the unavoidable consequences. The destruction of culture is a fundamental breach of the principle of intergenerational equity, in that a culture destroyed or diminished will deprive members of future generations of their right to their cultural inheritance. The opportunity to understand, celebrate, and cherish one's culture is an inherent component of social stability of all nations and of all people. The protection of cultural integrity is therefore a fundamental human right. The cultural connectivity between people and their historical roots engenders pride of place and a spirit to defend it at all costs. Climate change is the current generation's most fearsome threat, most likely to undermine all people's cultures, thus destroying the integrity and continuity of these cultures. We must collectively tackle climate change, not just because of changes in the biophysical environment and human well-being, but to recognise the core strength and connectivity of all socio-economic systems of humankind in maintaining cultural identity, diversity and sustainability.
This declaration is so important because, for example, our friends in Cartagena are crying for help because they see that the sea level rise is endangering a World Heritage Site of UNESCO. And they could become another Venice, with the sea level rise, and it's already impacting on a very important historical, cultural heritage of mankind. And we hope now that we can share with you other forms of communicating. It was mentioned about the need to change attitudes, behavior, lifestyle, and the arts, the use of ICT is really able to touch minds and hearts, whether it's a soap opera, whether it's paintings. Here we shall hear Peter Yarrow's famous song, and very relevant to COP21. We hope we can have Peter now with his song to share with you. Well, I think, oh, there it is.
How many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. This is Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul and Mary singing Blowing in the Wind, the iconic song that Bob Dylan wrote. And it asks, the last question in that second verse says, how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? How many times can we turn away from the absolute reality that we are facing irreversible climate change if we do not change our ways? And changing our ways means also building towards peace. Not just saving the planet, but saving us from war. And this is the way it works. If we have the kind of implementation that is what the nexus of this climate conference is all about, the wealthy nations will be advancing the interests of the First Nations by giving them the money to be able to transition to a non-carbon economy. What is that? That is generosity. That is sharing. And what is the cause of war? Yes, there are crazy things that happen, but mostly it's because people don't have a reason to live. They have nothing, and they know that there are people who have everything. If we close that gap, there will be far less reason for war. And a model for that can be what is going to be accomplished if what is being sought in this climate conference is done. So I'm sending you this song, and I'm telling you what this song says is the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is within us. It's nowhere else to look. It's in our hearts, it's all around our spirit. It's blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. And here's the last verse. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? And how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. It's within us. The answer, my friends, it's in our hearts. Let us stand together. Let us save the planet.
From a song of Peter Yarrow, we're going to move to showcase imaging, paintings. As you can see, the Sustainable Development Goals are being presented, painted by handy-capable artists, meaning to say persons with disabilities. And there are also some creations by youth from digital arts, and with the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction, a $5,000 prize was given by Margareta Wallström to the winner of a global drama contest, the Continental Divide, which came from Slovenia. And so we're also talking about how we can enrich people-to-people caring, understanding, friendships, affinities, so that we don't go into armed conflict. We have here with us the Honorary Consul of Georgia in the Philippines. In fact, even just through paintings that you will see from the gloom of the Haiyan destruction, you can also see the hope of colors that they will present. Mr. Thelmo Conanan Jr. will be speaking about this briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Alvarez. It really is indeed an honor and a privilege to be here in Paris for this monumentous event, and very inspiring to see everyone coming together to help combat this problem of climate change. Now, very quickly, we in the Philippines know all too well about climate change, the Philippines being one of the most impacted countries when it comes to global warming. But what we really learned is that all of us, no one is immune to climate change. In fact, last year in Georgia, the capital of our country, Tbilisi, was hit by a very bad flood which destroyed many parts of the city, including our zoo. And this really highlighted to my government the importance of dealing with this problem. So we decided to come together as Filipinos and Georgians to try to raise awareness of this problem through the arts. Because we feel that really arts is a means for social change, is a very powerful force, and it can really move people to action. And because of this, we organized last year the Colors of Hope exhibition using the artworks of master Philippine painter Pancho Piano. Pancho, can you stand up, please? And he actually is the first Filipino to exhibit in the Georgian National Museum. And it's called Colors of Hope because we Filipinos and Georgians like to see the optimistic side of things, and we want to share this spirit with other people. And so from Georgia, we brought the exhibition to Innsbruck, to Bratislava, and finally, on Sunday evening, it will be premiered at the Paris Fashion Gala of the civic organization Paris Fashion at number 12 Rue de l'Annonciation, right here in Paris. So this will be the last leg of our Colors of Hope exhibition. And again, I would like to thank everyone for coming here today. And really, it's been a very inspiring experience for us here. And I hope to see you all on Sunday.
Another very brief showing, a very interesting climate theater network that has been initiated by Climate Institute. You can see it. It has moved. It's an interactive museum. It has been set up in Mexico, in London, in Doha, and we will be discussing also, it's coming into Southeast Asia, the Philippines through the Climate Change Secretary Manny de Guzman. There will be discussions so that this interactive way of training and really going into a close encounter with the reason of global warming, the need to cut carbon footprints will be much understood. We would like to thank you for coming. This is a special gift we would like to give to France, to President Hollande, in appreciation of the push to really make that crucial global deal to save our children and generations to come and to care for creation, as Pope Francis has said. So on behalf again of the Chuchi Foundation and the Earth Savers movement, UNESCO Artists for Peace, thank you for joining us, and let's hope and we pray for that crucial global deal to save Mother Earth. Thank you again. I'm Cecile Guidote Alvarez, Director of the Earth Savers UNESCO Artists for Peace. Thank you.